Moving straight into our discussion segment, I do have my co-host, Hafiz Gunu. He has joined me right here in the studio. I mentioned that today happens to be the World Day of International Justice 2021, and in light of that, we're unpacking the relationship between Africa and the International Criminal Court. Now, every year, globally around the world, on July 17th is the World Day for International Justice. But then we're marking it today because if you look at the timelines, we wouldn't want you guys to miss great things that fall on weekends. So we do our best to actually bring them forward so that we'll be able to mark it right here on the show with you guys. Now, the aim of the day is to actually promote international criminal justice as a way of supporting the work of the International Criminal Court. Hafiz. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How was your afternoon?
My afternoon, it's been okay. It's been okay. Nothing to complain about so far, so I guess it's going on well.
Well, thank God.
Yes. Unpacking the relationship between Africa and, the ICC.
When first did you hear of the ICC?
I mean, since I can remember, anyway. I mean, as a kid, I've always been fascinated by the news, especially foreign news. So it's something that comes up every now and then. Yes, someone is getting prosecuted, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, as a kid, you won't miss it if definitely you are one to catch the news every now and then. Anyway, so, yes, I'm quite familiar with it. Yes, but as far as unpacking, looking at the relationship that exists between Africa and the International Criminal Court on a day such as the World Day for International Justice is an interesting one because if you look at the relationship between the continents and this body, it's been going so well until recently it hasn't been going so well. Yes, and for that reason there's been this bit of tension that exists between the continents, especially the heads of state, as against the ICC. Now, Africa, or the heads of states in Africa, say that they appear to be targeted by the ICC in the way they operate.
Okay.
So, I think the question here is, yes, is there some truth to this allegation? Is there some bias in the operations of the ICC? Or are we simply just asking the wrong questions? Yes. Now, let's look at the ICC in itself and what they do. Now, the ICC in operation is a court of last jurisdiction. Okay. Last resort, that is, to have jurisdiction over persons that have been accused of the most heinous of crimes against humanity. And so, what they do is their operating principle is based on consent. So, yes. So, what it means is that they don't come in until you invite them. That's what they say. But, of course, that doesn't mean that they don't have investigative powers to simply muscle their way through. Okay. Yes. But more often than not, they operate on the principle that, well, we will only come in
when you call us.
When you call us. And that's because, investigation takes time. It takes cooperation. How would it appear if I come here in Ghana to investigate a matter and you guys won't tell me anything? Then how then do I get to do my work?
Okay, that's true.
Good. So it's largely based on state cooperation. And so most of the time they hope that you will invite them in. So, but then if you look at the cases they've handled or they've been involved in Africa, you look at the cases involving Mali, Uganda, the Lord's Resistance Army and their activities. You look at Central African Republic and the DRC and all that. These were cases that were based on self-referrals.
Okay.
Yes, in other words, these countries actually invited them in.
They just did what they had to do.
Exactly. But that doesn't mean there were instances they didn't muscle their way through. So if you talk about the Kenyan incidents, you talk about the one in Burundi, these were instances where they decided to use their investigative powers
to step in.
So that's the case. So you're asking, so where from this animosity towards their activities recently, towards the ICC? Is there any basis to the claim? Now, if you are one for numbers, let's look at it this way. Now, as of 2018, the ICC was looking at some 11 cases.
From dealing with Africa.
11 cases, generally.
Okay.
Now, out of those 11 cases, 10
We're
were
from Africa.
good. That's one. Now, in another incident, now this ICC has been in operations in 2 decades or more, a little. Now, since they've operated in some 25 countries, or investigated cases from 25 countries.
Mm-hmm.
Out of these 25 investigated countries, guess how many from Africa? 12. So, does that prove anything? But then again, so based on some of these things, now you realize that the relationship was going so well, like I mentioned, until it wasn't.
It went wrong, yeah.
Because, I mean, there have been instances where, if you take the case of Uganda, where they were invited to actually investigate the activities of the LRA, the Lord's Resistance Army. Now, no one is absolving the LRA, but then, I mean, as it was a war, I mean, atrocities were committed on both ends. But then the LRA were investigated and picked up, but some government officials that were also implicated in some of these things weren't. Mm-hmm. And so they were left off the hook. Okay. Now, the relationship between heads of states in Africa and the ICC went sour when they started targeting the heads of states. Yeah. That was when the whole thing went south. And so, because of, them targeting, and they were banking on the, the support from the Western world.
Yeah.
Yes, and it may have worked in the case of Libya, but in Kenya and Sudan, they were like, no, it's not going to happen anymore.
That's true.
So before that, you realize that the likes of Burundi decided, okay, you know what, we are no longer going to cooperate. So we are walking out of the ICC.
So they're no longer member states.
States. So the Burundi decided they were leaving. The Gambia decided they were going, but I think because of the regime change, Adama Barrow coming in, they changed their mind. South Africa also were like, well, no, we are leaving. So by 2017, I think the AU, issued a resolution and encouraged members to not cooperate with the ICC when the need arises. So yes, when you look at the cases, you realize that, of course, in some instances, you can say that there are some authoritarian regimes that are trying to use this whole situation to avoid getting prosecuted. In the case of Burundi, you can say, in the case of Gambia. But let's not also forget that, and let's not reduce the whole issue to the fact that, I mean, the opposition to the ICC's activities is just leaders avoiding accountability. Remember, Africa has a checkered history with foreign interference. Yeah. And we have to be very careful when we allow foreign powers into our domain.
Especially when you invite them yourself.
Exactly. So these are 2 things we need to watch. So there's just this crop or this group in the AU or Africa that are anti-ICC. Okay. And their position is simple. They are saying that no head of state should be brought before the ICC while they are still in power.
Okay.
Yes. So that is their position on the matter. But then again, they went on to establish what they call the Malabo Protocol in 2014, but that's another issue I don't want to bring. But you see, because of this stance, you realize that, but then again, when you come to Africa, a lot of them, or a lot of leaders, sometimes try to maneuver their way around the system. It's time to exit office, and you find some of them trying to extend their stay, or refuse
the laws.
Exactly. Try to refuse, election results.
Yeah.
And we've seen, so it almost appears, what it means is that if you don't want to be prosecuted or picked up by the ICC, for one reason or the other, try to be president or stay there. Because once you are out, you are fair game. So, and it doesn't send a good signal on a continent where we've had issues like that crop up.
Yeah.
Yes. Because if you take the case of Burundi, the case of Pierre Buyoya, in 1987, this was the guy that came to power through a coup. Yeah. Yes. And after 1987, he became so comfortable thinking that, okay, the people, would vote for him if he organized elections. In 1993, he organized elections and lost. And guess what? In 1996, he came back through a coup. So
it's like a pattern you see.
Exactly. So because of that, Burundi got sanctioned up until 1999. And recent memory, we can talk about even Yahya Jammeh. That one we are very, we can still remember. organized elections was organized, you considered defeat and everything, went to bed only to come back and say no.
He went to think about it.
It's not up to you to think about. The people have decided.
Well, in the heat of the moment, yes. But then after he went to sleep, he was thinking deep about it. So then he came up and said, you know what, no, I won't agree.
Exactly. So looking at the activities of the ICC, based on these things, you ask yourself, is Africa justified in putting the activities in check, or is just, people that are falling out with the ICC and refusing that accountability?
Well, I wouldn't say it's just people who are falling out and refusing accountability. I mean, you actually had, there was a case where they were looking at the Rwanda genocide. And if you didn't have the president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, talk about the fact that he feels that it's more like rooted into the whole colonialism thing. And for him, he doesn't think they're there looking out for Africa's good. They are there to undermine the continent. So he necessarily doesn't agree with the way they handle the issues. And considering the fact that they actually decided to pick up the first sitting head of state, they actually decided to check up, happened to be from Kenya. I mean, you're looking at Uhuru Kenyatta, and this was somebody they were looking at crimes against humanity, so many things. So it could tell you, but we've got to the case whereby...
So it's one of the cases they actually decided to muscle their way through.
Yes. Yeah. That was in 2014. And you see, it tells you that, hey, it's not like yes, I get some of the fact that sometimes some in quote of African leaders they know what they have done. So they know that if I don't hang on to this thing, it's like a monkey hanging by, those branches across a river of crocodiles. If I drop into it, they're just going to pound on me. So I might as well just keep hanging and dangling across. So then we get some of them have done things that they know immediately are out of power. Yes, but for those that haven't done things that warranted, for the cases where, and the way and manner most often they carry out the investigation, the way and manner in which they present their cases, it doesn't leave much room for you to say, okay, I'm here, I'm there. No, it's like you've been brought. So everything is being done towards ensuring that you are found like culpable.
Really?
In a way. And some of the African leaders don't agree with that. And I feel that targeting heads of states is like, in a way, you put the authority in question.
Okay,
for the people.
Let me ask this. I mean, when this accusation come up, okay, or came up rather, they were like, okay, that is not what we're doing.
Yes, they denied, yeah.
But where do you stand where they actually appointed the chief prosecutor to be an African, a Gambian actually? Because, I mean, when these, these critics came at them, that was what they decided to do. So,
don't you think that was a good strategy?
How?
Because if we had appointed a European or a white person to be the chief prosecutor, what would we have said?
But what has changed?
I'm just asking, what would we have said?
More of the same, really.
And then when they appointed the black, what did it do?
It's still the same. It hasn't changed.
Yes, it hasn't changed. But the key thing there was the fact that it's one of your own. So you can't necessarily blindly come and say that we're still trying to pin something on you. It's just to give them that balance of the fact that we're being fair, we're being truthful, we're being objective.
But Epi, understand something. The ICC was actually established because a lot of Africans signed onto it. A lot of African countries signed.
Oh yeah, we had about 34, yes, 34 countries that signed onto it. I do agree with that. But the beginning of something is not how it ends. And somehow along the line, things change. Initially, they were enthusiastic. They were happy about something that could work across borders. But then now, when you realize that you're actually targeting the heads of states, it wasn't. It was like a bitter pill for them to swallow. I don't know if you get the point I'm coming from. I come and then I sign up onto something, and when I'm signing up, you don't tell me that okay, probably at a point in time we'll be targeting you or looking at this or that. So I sign up, and I'm not actually foreseeing such things. And then somewhere midway, these issues pop up.
Okay, look, let's understand why the ICC seems to have a legitimacy problem. And that's what it appears to look like. Okay, people struggle understanding their legitimacy issues.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. The ICC is closely, related to the United Nations Security Council. Yes. Now, if you take a look at the United Nations Security Council, it has 5 veto-wielding members. We are talking about the US, the UK, Russia, China, France. Now, these 5 countries. Now, here's where it gets interesting. So, maybe you're understanding, but I'm trying to...
You see the countries you have mentioned?
Let me go on.
Okay.
Now, of the 5 countries, 3 of these countries, guess what, are not part of the ICC. They refuse to be part of it. And we're talking US, Russia, China.
But then they still have they wield the veto power.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yet somehow, when persons get investigated, they somehow have a say.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question is, okay, so what then happens for those countries that are not, signatories to the ICC or are not part of the ICC? What happens? And these are countries that are under the protection of these veto-wielding powers. So if you take the case of, say, Israel and what we saw recently with Palestine and everything.
Yeah, very disturbing things.
Yes. Israel and America are bedfellows. Yeah. We remember when the ICC said, okay, Israel has to answer questions, and they were like, we are not going to cooperate. Do your worst. So, you see what's happening?
They know what they had backing them.
Exactly. So, you have issues where it's so difficult for them going after certain countries because they are bedfellows with, certain superpowers you can't touch.
Okay, but then
when it comes to this part of the world, well, unfortunately...
Who actually is backing you? Which power are you coming behind?
But you guys went to sign on to it.
No, which power are you coming behind that you come and tell us that to do your worst? That's the question. And I mean, for me, I feel it's even questionable the fact that these people have veto powers, but then their countries have not signed on to it. And is it not questionable? Is it not something that we should actually... How will people not doubt the legitimacy of the people?
Well, they haven't signed on because, for some reason, they say they haven't experienced some sort of political instability for a long while. So they have been politically stable, they would say.
So that is their reason for not signing on.
Exactly. And so if you look at the countries that have signed on, or usually ICC was projected as, an avenue for weaker countries to seek redress. Okay, for crimes, perpetrated against them. I don't know if you get me. So in
I do get you.
Exactly. It's a good idea. I mean, there's no point.
That's why I said the genesis is...
All these guys are running the ship, so, I mean, who are they running to anymore? I don't know if you get
it. It's not that sweet in the genesis. But then now...
Exactly. So the operation seems to be a challenge. So instead of probably targeting... Because at the end of the day, I want to say we still need what they do around. But just how it's carried out it seems to be an issue that needs work.
And okay, from your honest perspective, do you believe that work is actually being done, will be done, or do you see some changes? Do you foresee any changes in the way the operations are being handled between now and the next 20 years?
Unfortunately, no. I mean, recently, with everything that happened in Israel, yes, and the aftermath. I mean, to have Israel, a tiny nation like that, just say no, and nothing can be done. What are you going to do? And we've seen all this, and not one of these nations came out to condemn what was going on. It's almost like they were tongue-tied. So, where lies the justice anyway?
And that tells you that, I mean, I feel for me, with the whole Israel situation, I felt like it showed that, hey, as much as I try to seem like I'm the big boss and I do have the final say, I actually do not have the final say. I actually do not have the final say.
As in the case of the US?
Well, basically...
How so?
Having the ICC call upon Israel and they tell you, I won't come, do your worst. Now, the worst they were going to do, whose support do they need to start that?
Whose support? Well, there are 5 members that will the veto powers.
Out of the 5 members, is one of them not backing the country that is saying do your worst?
Exactly.
So how are you going to go against them?
So it's obvious the way they operate needs work. There's a lot of work, and there seems to be a trust issue that has cropped up.
Of course.
Yes, because you see, for Africa, we've made ourselves easy targets. Unfortunately, politically, we are not united. Distracted. I mean, if you look at the way things operate,
it's pathetic sometimes.
We are not together. Even look at the Libya issue when they wanted to pick up Gaddafi. Some were for it, some were against it. Okay, we don't normally present ourselves as
a united front. Yeah.
So it's so easy for anyone to want to target.
Just pray, yeah.
You know, because they know that, well, I mean, it's divide and conquer basically. So when they come in and they put out these names, a lot of the time it's going to cause a lot of issues, and you'd have people that either back it or not.
Yes, they'll jump for it.
Yes, so you have that. Also, they also have, what do you call it? Unfortunately, they have colonialism to thank for whatever it is that's happening. Because years of colonialism on Africa, on the continent, has created this image of the continent that is savage, is barbaric. And it's a continent that needs some Western savior.
Yes, but then just not to stop you there, but just to pick on that, I just want to ask you a question. Years of all those colonialism, years after the colonialism, after so many things we're doing and keep doing and all that, is it that we haven't yet still painted a picture that actually tells the very same world that got the picture that we're barbarians or we're savages, that hey, these people are not barbaric, they are not savages? Is it that we have not yet painted that picture, or is it that the picture has been painted but these people are refusing to interpret it as that?
Look, in one breath we say things and the next we
do a different thing.
We do a different thing, unfortunately.
Today I read, in Namibia. I did have my reservations with the story I read. So one of the German Namibian scientists and a group of Namibian academics actually wrote to Germany, asking them that they should actually supply and bring aid to Namibia. Now that's a different thing if you just write to ask. But then this was the premise. The fact that due to their colonization history, Germany is responsible and should be responsible to help Namibia in this time of COVID-19.
Interesting.
And guess what they brought? 60 beds, 500,000 nose mask, face shield, goggles.
It's an insult, really. So you watch the way we handle ourselves, especially the things we see don't exactly match our actions. Let's not go too far. Right here in our home base, Ghana, we are screaming in one breath.
I really saw that coming.
In one breath, we are screaming Ghana beyond aid. The next minute, we go there hand in cup, asking for some assistance. Yeah. In the situation in Mali, it's supposed to be independent and everything. 5 African countries came together to tackle a terrorist organization. They couldn't. It had to take France to come in, and help us. And in fact, not just 5. These other African countries promised sending supplies and everything to Mali. It wasn't forthcoming. The president had no option than to call on to their colonial masters. Okay, now we've seen these issues happen all over the country. So, yes, in one breath we say these things, and I just feel our actions don't match our words, and that's where we are falling short. And if we could actually do something about it, because at the end of the day, look, we're not always going to be taken seriously if this is the way we are going to be running issues.
For me, I think we've actually never been taken seriously.
So, and it's problematic. Yes. So, for me, yes, I think one step at trying to work out our own issues was actually the Malabo Protocol that we decided to put together at the African courts, the International Criminal Law at the African courts. Yeah. But here's the thing about it. It actually agrees to, the anti-ICC stance that, okay, African heads of states are immune once they are still in office. So that's the African version. But the ICC one that wants to come and pick you up whilst you are in office, they are like, we're not going to take it. So is the reason a warrant was put out for the arrest of Omar al-Bashir in 2009.
Yeah.
And after 2013, he was still flying and cruising in town because no one could touch him. And there was this misunderstanding as to should we arrest him, not arrest him?
Yeah.
Should we send him to the ICC? Because immediately when he was in South Africa, I think South Africa were like, you are not going to leave the country until we decide in our courts what we are going to do. Are we going to send you back or leave you?
Yeah.
And they were in the process of doing that, and his plane was up in the air. He was so. I mean, interesting things happening on the continent, and that doesn't exactly scream that yes, we have it all together, which is problematic. I just hope that we would rectify this thing along the way, but really, it's appearing difficult every now and then, but hopefully we'll get there. If not in our generation, maybe the next. Maybe the next. But why are you? Okay.
The way you said if not in our generation, maybe the next.
I'm old, so I'm saying that based on my age. So. I'm almost 50, so. I don't look 50. I don't look like what that would. Okay.
You're not even 40.
Really?
Yes.
Keep telling. That's what you assume.
That is the truth.
Okay.
But no, I honestly agree with you. I feel that, look, it's not always putting about the wrong side or showing that the divided front is where we have an issue with. The fact that it's either I'm for A or B. Even when the thing is going to work for your good. So that you choose to actually, then we'll not get it at all. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you get the picture I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel it's not going to help. It's good if we actually find a way to change this, because if not, we will always be easy prey for most of these things. We will always be easy prey. It's not like some of these organizations don't have divisions among them or everybody agrees. No, they do. But then when they are coming to you, they come as a united front.
But you see, even the uniting that you're talking about, we really need to do it and understand. I mean, this apprehension or this, sort of animosity towards the ICC and its operations, in a way, is justified because if you look at in the last decade or two, the mad rush for resources,
yes,
by global powers on the continent is scary. And so, at every time we need to question the motives of not just all these powers or these aid organizations that come.
But who is actually going to question the motives?
That's the thing. Okay, so that's why we need responsible leaders to question the motives of these organizations, because I mean, there was an era where Britain were basically all over and running the scene.
Yeah.
There was the United States. Now these days it's China.
China actually does its own in an invisible cloak.
China is even more scary if you look at the way it's spreading its tentacles, especially in the economic policing and everything that they do. Okay, even the AU building you're sitting in was from China. Recently, conversations are how maybe our heads of states
the headquarters that was built
bagged or something. So anyway,
maybe. That is also.
Hey, don't go there.
I'm not going to say anything. But that is something worth thinking of. It's really something worth thinking.
Really?
Of. Yes, it is. I mean, no, seriously, it is worth thinking of.
Yeah.
Once you're not responsible.
I haven't said anything.
No, I'm just saying, once you're not entirely responsible for it, something has to happen.
Oh, they're saying it's a gift. China has given you guys gifts. I mean, if I can recall. I mean,
have you ever heard of that thing that says that
your stadium was a Chinese gift?
Have you heard of a thing that says that every gift has a secret price tag?
Really?
Yes.
I haven't heard that saying.
Every gift has a secret price tag.
No, not every gift. I've taken gifts and I haven't had to pay for it. So.
You do realize even a smile or a thank you could be paying back.
Does it have a price tag?
Well, that is for somebody. Just thanking me is enough for me. But you're not talking about. It's China we are talking about. I mean, Hafiz, it's China. It's China we are talking about. And they just came and then we're giving it to you for free.
They
smiling.
Said that's a gift anyway, so.
They didn't get any other building to the AU.
So anyway, so I mean, the sort of things that goes on. I mean, it reminds me of the words of Magufuli so much, where I mean he assessed the terms of a contract that his predecessor entered with the Chinese government. I think regarding their ports. And his statement was, I mean, only a madman would agree to these terms. Yeah. So it must have been really crazy for him to say that. Now he's gone. I mean, things are different there. I'm not saying Samia is doing a bad job, but Samia Suluhu, but I'm just saying that, I mean, things have changed. I mean, there's a whole 360 on things happening in there. All of a sudden, I mean, he was like, I mean, there's no COVID, let's do this and that.
Yeah, we get the whole COVID thing, give him a different, they made him look different in the eyes of people.
Yes, so, anyway, Charlie, but with persons like Magufuli that was gone recently, Kenneth Kaunda gone, I feel like Africa is losing a crop of very strong leaders that existed one time that would not,
allow certain things.
Would not allow certain things. Okay.
But haven't you seen in the recent trend? Haven't you seen or identified new breed of such leaders?
Who is this? Kagame, I can think of.
That's what that man did.
So I mean, because I think before the demise of Magufuli, I would say Kagame, Magufuli, and West Africa. I can't think of any. North. Don't look at me like that. No. South Africa, no.
He just said West Africa, I can't think of any.
Yeah, West Africa, I would have said Buhari. But
right now,
with everything happening in Nigeria, I doubt.
Yeah, having second thoughts right now.
I really can't. Because, I mean, I watched a video where Kagame was not having it when a journalist was, didn't like the line of questioning of a particular journalist and gave it to her on the spot. Now, I was here thinking, okay, Kagame, look at how he's handled himself, and maybe, just maybe, it's because of his military background. But then I think next door there's Buhari, who also has a military background, and well, we see how that's going. So.
Yeah, but I think we can't always blame the military background.
No, I'm not blaming. I'm actually saying, giving credence to his military background for
the way he's handled. Exactly.
Yes, he's not a civilian. He's not someone you can walk all over, and he's all politically correct. No. I mean, he's going to speak his mind.
Oh, yes.
And usually you'd expect this from people that have some form of training like that. Yeah. That, that would identify, all these things in between and then give it back to you as it is. But you haven't seen that. Yes. Our very own president, Nanado, well, he started out on a good note. I'm not saying he's doing bad. I'm just saying he started out on a good note. And then at some point, I don't know, action seems not to match words, and that is concerning. Yes. So anyway, let's see.
But I just hope and want to believe, like you've mentioned, the ICC can sit back and look at the one question though I have for you finally before we wrap this up. What do you think, or what do you feel the issue was with African leaders feeling they were being targeted whilst they were in power?
Whilst they're in power.
Exactly. Now, what do you think was the fear? Because I feel if these people are coming to target you, there has to be a reason. Mm-hmm. And there comes a case whereby if you don't invite me, I'm not coming in.
Now, here's the thing. Previously, the relationship was simple.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you take the ICC and, the relationship between African countries, what happened was post 9/11, the ICC was basically couldn't touch the Middle East because of everything was going, the United States and all. So they turned their attention to Africa. Now, if you look at the way Africa has operated, you have leaders. Now, what would happen is that the ICC would pick up rebel leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Because when they come to you and say, okay, this is what the LRA is doing.
Mm-hmm.
We need you to come in and investigate. Now, is the state asking you to come in? So what it means is that they pick up a few suspected individuals and they get the thumbs up for doing something about global impunity because they are prosecuting a few rebels.
Yes.
Whilst, in exchange, leaders that are still in power get immunity. Okay, so the whole problem started when they started going after the leaders themselves.
So for me, my question is, the leaders get immunity. Is it immunity in the sense that
from prosecution? That's what.
Yes, but then from prosecution, that's not even if you do something wrong, we're not going to prosecute you.
Exactly. Exactly. So, I mean, it's all well and good. So what it means is that I, as a leader, get to do whatever I want, and then call you, and then cry foul and call you to come and pick up a few individuals.
Meanwhile, I still go around and do whatever I want.
You see, where
the trust issue definitely will begin.
Exactly. So what it means is that people started asking questions about the way they operate.
Yes.
Because if we were picking up the rebels for what they did, of course they were fighting against something. And these individuals also were in violation of certain laws.
Yeah.
But just because they came to you crying and saying and complaining stuff, you side with them and then pick up a few rebels and then ignore them. So that is where the whole issue lies. And once the ICC decided, okay, you know what, now we have Western backing, or there's Western backing now. Mm-hmm. We are going to change the way we do things. We are going to go after you, the leaders. Then it's like, oh, now neo-colonialism. You want to colonize us again.
I feel very turning back on them was the fact that they had gathered enough. They knew what was happening because they had been previously working with them. So capture these rebels.
So people are like, okay, so if you are coming after us, okay, equally go after people that are out there. But they are handicapped in the sense that most people that are out there under the protection of these veto guys. And
the power of 5.
Anyway, so
the power of 5.
Yeah. So
thank you so much. I think if we just want to keep a solution focused and hope that, like you mentioned, I just want to believe that maybe in our generation or the next one to come, we can find a whole new set of Magufulis and Paul Kagames. But I just hope that, I mean, we have somebody before our generation passes by.
And what worries me is even I think there's this news item I chanced on about, Laurent Gbagbo. Mm-hmm. He's actually now, joining forces with one candidate like that to take out Alassane Ouattara.
Oh.
And they are around 80s and 70s in a year. God,
it's hard though.
Right. So
we do hope for the best.
So where are the young bloods? Where are they?
No, but then when you look at Bobby Wine.
Ghetto president.
Look at Bobby Wine. He's a young blood, but look at what's happening. So how much encouragement do you think these other young bloods will get to be running after such a high seat? It's very worrying. I'm disturbed about South Africa because, I mean, after Jacob Zuma, there are a lot of protests and revolts and things just flying up and down the city. It's bad. It's really bad. We just hope the authorities can curb it in before it actually goes out of hand, because it's getting serious by the day. Thank you so much.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, subscribe and share.